Natural light or studio lights? Which one is better, and which one should you actually choose on this episode on Beyond the Science podcast?
All right, let's get into it.
Absolutely.
I know you had a lot that you wanted to say on
Yeah,
this topic.
I almost stumbled upon my intro because of how much I'm excited about this topic, because I was one way for like a very long time, and then I was swayed into another way, and I think there's one type of lighting that takes superior to all, to be honest, and that's what we're gonna actually get into. But before I say mine, what is your opinion?
No, I'm so curious to hear yours. I am always looking for the balance in things, so I'm always looking to give my opinion, but also understand the opposing opinion of whatever opinion I'm about to give. That's just who I am. So I'm about to say natural lighting, but in my head I'm also thinking, okay, studio lighting can be manipulated in many ways to even look as much like natural lighting as it can, or to be manipulated to look like whatever you need it for. But I find, for me personally, and all the shoots that I've done over the years, natural lighting is number one for me. So I would love to hear.
Right. So for the beginning, so like when I started out doing photography, right, which is actually funny because I started out with studio lighting. Because in architecture school, what we did was, after we built our models, we needed to take photographs of it. So we had a studio room, like a photography room, that we were able to put our models down, use the lights around, and like take photos, right? And because of like how we were, like, you studied functionalities of building and stuff, so you needed to emulate sort of light stuff. Now, if we were to use natural light, it'd be a lot harder to get natural light in that place, because one, it's all dark in the room except the lights are around. So there was a couple of lighting situations, kind of like a dome light that emulated sunlight. We had certain other lights that emulated certain times of the day, and one that emulated nighttime. So like it was really interesting working around with that and figuring out like how these things worked, right?
Absolutely.
When I got into taking photos of portrait photography and just exploring out with what's it called? The crew that we used to photograph with all the time, we had to learn how to use, well, we normally use natural light. And I was like so amazed about natural light. I'm like, wow, like you can do so much with like the actual natural light that's out there, right? And it's really interesting because like looking back at it, which one I do prefer, I'm gonna get to that later on, because I'm on the defense of both. I really like.
That's what I'm saying. When you go to present your opinion, you're also thinking about the other side.
Absolutely. There's one opinion that I'd use over and over again.
Doubt.
Right? But what I'm going to give my argument to both, right? Let's say you are starting out as a photographer and you don't understand lights whatsoever, right? Just start out with natural light. Because a lot of people, and their defense of not using using studio lights over natural light, is because of the fact that their answer is, oh, natural light is better. Not studio lights, it's like fake photography and not. But the actual argument behind it is that you don't know how to use those lights, because using those lights are actually really beneficial for what you're trying to do.
And like you said, you can emulate
exactly. So it's not
light within studio settings.
Exactly. So it's not about like using like a free get card out. It's that you're intimidated by the gear itself, right? But natural light, you can do so much with it. Like you can get the organic or natural feel of things, because with studio lights, you still get this hint of something isn't right. Something doesn't feel natural with it, right? But with natural light, you get that sense of organicness. And if you know how to actually pose your subject in a certain manner. You know how to compose it. You use the lights to your advantage, because light could actually hurt you. And that's the key thing. Like, if anything about photography or the craft of filmmaking or whatnot is the most important, besides the gear, besides the audio, besides everything, besides the color and stuff like that, it's light. It's how you actually, and that was actually one of the fundamentals I learned back in architecture school, is that lighting is actually way more important than how your building actually functions.
Yes.
Because there's actually certain calculations depending on the orientation of your building to allow certain lights to come in. I forget what the equations are, but I think the ratio of the percentage is, if it's north to south orientation, it's like 35 versus like your east and west, because the sun rises from the east to the west, depending on which time of day. I think the one side has to be 30 while the other side has to be 40. So it's like really like specific ratios, because of the fact, like, and this is like minimum stuff. Like you can go crazy and make it 100% like a lighting condition, right? But the key factor is that light is important for our day-to-day activity.
It's so important in every aspect of your life. And that's very interesting that you talk about the architecture side of it, because when you're looking into buying a house, or even if you're looking into renting an apartment, I find, like, I watch a lot of these YouTubers that are moving from one place to another. When they go to look for their new apartment or house or whatever, they're looking for the building with the best lighting.
Yeah, because if you really notice, your environment gets influenced by the amount of light that is able to spill in, right?
Yes.
If there's a dark room, it just seems cramped.
Yes.
But if it's a light room, then everything just seems open and just more like cheerful and moody. And
it allows you to be more creative and motivated and open to new things.
Exactly.
It truly does.
So when it comes to what's it called, the photography and film side of things, right? Natural light is always going to be key to being able to produce the like correct or the appropriate, or maybe the most creative, or I want to say like most professional way of actually creating a certain image or a certain product at the end of the day, right? But let's go back into studio lights, right? Studio lights are artificial, yes, but you can do so much with it, right? You can, doesn't matter what day of what time of the day, you can still film, right?
Yes.
The second thing is that you can superimpose and create artificial conditions that meet, like, for example, let's say where you're located, right? It's very dull, moody, gloomy, but you have like a shoot that you need to do that seems bright and cheerful and stuff like that. You can always change the lighting settings to make it more in the warmer tones, and like rather than doing it in post, you're doing it in actual like real life scenarios, so you're able to produce a better looking natural way of lighting, even though you're using artificial lights. There's a lot to it. And also you get those really nice crisp, like, whether you have the ability to control your light versus sunlight, you're not able to control it whatsoever, right? You're under the mercy of a lot of people shoot during golden hours, which is like the first 30-minute hour and a half of daylight coming out, and then the last hour and a half where daylight's coming down. So if
you're not shooting at golden hour, or you're shooting, say you're doing the opposite of that and you're trying to shoot at like 1 p.m., you're kind of screwed in a lot of scenarios.
Not necessarily, actually.
Because, I find that personally, like if you're on a super sunny day and you're out shooting in the middle of the day, it'll wash out your subject very easily.
Actually, I have an argument against that.
Well, do you have like a hack or tip how to get around it?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Use reflectors.
Yes, but that's only if you have a second person. What are you going to do? Carry, like, I have a very heavy camera. It's very heavy to hold up with one hand. So how am I going to be like...
You can always prop up a tripod figure out like your position and stuff like that. So you're still able to use natural light.
So put the reflector on a tripod.
Put the reflector on a tripod.
Okay.
They have that.
That's only if your subject isn't moving.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, let's say you have them, like you're trying to get a specific picture, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm saying this like more or less like people who don't want to use artificial light. Mm-hmm. And they want to shoot outside, but like their client only has like a limited amount of window. Because realistically speaking, not everyone can make it during the last like few hours before it's right. So a lot of people like, and I've had a friend of mine who actually, two friends of mine actually, who had to shoot during the middle of the day where the sun is like at its peak.
Yes.
And it's just blinding. One was complaining about like they couldn't get any of the shots, and that was the one who was being paid for the gig, while the other one just accompanied him and still got better shots than him because he was able to use reflectors to sort of help him out with the specific shots, right? Yes, there were two people, but he was able to prop it up somewhere, have it bounce off to the subject. So now like you're not getting those raccoon eyes or like any weird shadows. Now you're having like a soft.
You have a balanced.
Exactly. So there's ways to play with natural light, but then again, you're under the mercy of the condition, how the light is shining. So you can't really move the light, but you can always try to manipulate the light. Mm-hmm. So that's one way you can do natural light. Now, if you have a portable strobe light like I do, right? I have 3 of them. What I love to do is take them outside. Doesn't matter what time of the day. I can still take a clean shot, and you'll still be able to see the person, like see either your subject or person or whatever it is, crisp, because of like the manipulation of like how you can, these strobe lights, they take pictures like in a second, right?
Yes.
So what it does, it negates any light out there. Of course, like sunlight, you can't really like negate it, but like it's sort of to the point where like it's strong, like these strobe lights are strong enough to oppose the sunlight, so you end up coming out with like a cleaner image and more exposed.
I love the concept of combining the two and combining the artificial light with the natural light and kind of using both to your advantage and making sure that you can get that shot. It reminds me of when I was in high school, I went to this program at UCLA, 2-week program, and I stayed in a dorm, one of the freshman dorms. And that 2-week program was so informative. Like when we talk about going to school for your craft or to not, that is somewhere where, you know, the only, in my mind, the only way that I would go to school for my craft is if I was going to UCLA, because I loved that program so much. And I felt like 2 weeks, they taught you so many things. They taught us not only how to use Lightroom. When I was like 16, 17, I wasn't using Lightroom at that time. Taught me how to use Lightroom, how to organize my photos in my hard drive, importing, exporting, the whole deal. What they taught us in relation to light was all 3 scenarios, right? How to shoot in a studio and how to manipulate the lighting there. How to shoot in natural lighting, how to manipulate the lighting there. Then they brought the studio outside and showed you how to shoot with a studio background, say like a backdrop, and some outside lights, but you're also in natural light and you're getting that daylight in there. So not only did we shoot in the studio that they had at UCLA, they brought us to a museum. They brought us to the Getty Museum. And our challenge for the day was, and it was broad daylight actually, our challenge for the day was to shoot around the Getty Museum and see if we can come up with some really nice crisp shots. And so we were put in all these different scenarios in a span of 2 weeks, where we had to learn how to manipulate studio lighting indoors, how to work with the natural lighting that we have outdoors, and how to bring the studio outside and still get those really crisp shots. And I mean, the value to that is like indispensable, in my opinion.
No, absolutely. And it's interesting because you just reminded me of this building. It's called the I think it's called this. It's the marine biology campus in San Diego. I want to say it's the Salk Institute, but I could be wrong. But basically, I'll explain it. So basically, the way it works is that the dorms are, it's this one straight line, right? You have this like pond that like this sort of like river, canal, or like fountain kind of thing that like kind of splits it in half, and it's mirrored from one another, right? But the rooms are actually shifted slightly towards the middle, right? Because what it does is, and there's a window in between each of the sliver, right? So not only does each student of the dorm have a view of the ocean, but during that peak golden hour, light spills in, and they get this nice soft light into their dorms. So like not only does the view, like everyone has a view, even if you're at the back end of the dorm, you still have a view of the ocean and still have natural light spilling in.
Wow.
So it's interesting to see, like, it really depends on the location that you're at too, because like California is a great way to get some natural light.
Yeah,
all year around,
yes,
right?
definitely.
Like versus like the East Coast,
Definitely.
like where we're at, there are some times in a row where it's just all gloomy and like nothing looks straight.
For sure.
Like you have to mess around with like what you got. I mean,
Man, I wish Pepperdine had adopted that type of dorm style where you could still get a view of the ocean, and because I could see the ocean walking into my dorm building, but not from my window. Man, that's some amazing architecture, truly.
yeah, it's truly comes down to the intention of so it's form follows function rather than function follows form.
Mm-hmm.
So like that's what it truly comes down to, is like understanding. And that's why like it's important, and I know I'm going back to architecture, but it's the craft, right? Is that when you look at the forms of things and like know how to build it to what your surrounding is, it really like drives the functionality of how things work. Vice versa could work too, that the functionality could drive the form. But you really have to think about it in like very like both being in like they're equal in its own right. But at the end of the day, it's like which principle do you follow, right? So a lot of people follow the form follows function, while other people follow the function versus form, right?
It's all about whether you're manipulating your environment
Exactly.
to match what you're,
Right. And that's where studio lighting and natural lighting come in, right? So I don't want people to think, oh, is this an architectural like podcast? No, it's
architecture relates to everything though, especially when you're talking about lighting and angles and composition.
exactly. So that's where like it's really fundamental that like you understand how light works to be able to use sort of these conditions. So which one was I talking about earlier?
That was going to be my next question.
I was actually talking about studio light
I knew
all
it.
the way.
I knew it.
Because yes, natural light is great and all, but you don't have the control. And in an industry where you're on the constant move of actually creating, you don't have time to bend to its will. In certain cases, yes, you would have to like be patient and grab that perfect shot, but also too, you can emulate the same way in studio lights. So
I like the intention. I like what you're saying. I like the meaning behind what you're saying. When I like you brought up before, when you first started shooting portrait photography, you realized how important and amazing natural light is in that scenario, right? That's not what you usually shoot. Now, being a portrait photographer, that's what I normally shoot. I honestly, truly do love the specific intention that goes behind having to plan your shoots around nature and around, outside factors that are not always in your control. But I do appreciate that when you're being paid for a gig or hired for a project that requires a certain type of standard of delivery, you want to make sure that there's no mess up and that you can get it done.
yeah, and I feel like not for anything, but like I feel like those who understand how studio light works, it's very easy for them to actually like be all right taking a gig like very quickly, while other, like for example, like being in a, like you have to use natural light and stuff like that, you're kind of like in this like you're using it as a restriction and a limitation. So you're like, oh, we got to see how the weather is, we have to see how this is. I don't know if this day would work because it's not the appropriate time. While like being in a condition where you can use studio lights, it's like, yeah, we'll do it like this day, no problem, you know?
No, it's so true. And like you were saying beforehand, a lot of times the people who are talking about preferring natural lighting in every scenario are going to be the people who don't know how to use studio lights. And while that is not exclusively me, I am way more well-versed in natural lighting than I am in studio lighting. I'm not as experienced with manipulating the light in an artificial setting, and you are. So that's why I understand that you would prefer studio lighting, because you know how to manipulate the light.
Right. And not every case, like, I'll be honest, like light is an anomaly. You can understand how to bend it to your will and stuff, but like ultimately it really comes down to how it looks on camera.
Yes.
Because like the fundamentals do work.
Strictly,
like,
almost.
you know, the 45 to fill, key, backlight, everything, hair light, undertone. But like literally when it comes down to it, it's that light can be controlled. But the beauty of it is just looking at how the camera like is able to achieve it, and it's just a good feeling.
Even in this podcast, when we were recording in a studio atmosphere, in a studio setting,
I like that environment a lot because
So
of
did
like
I.
how, see,
Absolutely.
we had to like learn how to, like, I know how to
you
control
had the
it.
lights behind us, you had the lights on each side, and now that we're in a more natural lighting type of situation,
Like a
where we have
hybrid.
it is truly a hybrid, where we have the natural light behind us, but we have the artificial light in front of us. It's been a little more of an adjustment in terms of us talking in post about manipulating that light in post to make it work for us, because we couldn't get it exactly how we wanted it to in the beginning. And so it's been a trial and error of, okay, we need to push the artificial light back because we already have enough natural light to,
But when we pushed it too back, we ended up
and
being
it's too
dark.
Right.
So it's more of like, let's let them compete with each other,
Yeah.
and see which one ends up being great. And honestly, the picture quality and like lighting exposure has been phenomenal lately.
It has been.
So, but yeah, my opinion is go artificial, strobe lights, studio lights, go nuts.
And my opinion would definitely be natural lighting.
Yeah.
It's just all the scenarios that you can manipulate it, even like you said, with reflectors and things like that. If it is too bright, like you brought up a point to add to my respective opinion of
Yeah, just because it's natural doesn't mean that you're constricted to it. You can
No,
always
that's
bend
true.
it to your will. It's just how you bend it really depends on the position of where light is.
And with that, I would love to know what any of you guys think about this topic.
Absolutely.
Comment down
Natural
below.
light or artificial light. So you guys be the judging factor of
Let's
that.
start that conversation. Comment down below your opinion.
Absolutely. And with that being said, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. If you like this episode, hit the like button and the subscribe button. We really do appreciate it, as this channel is growing and we've been seeing tremendous growth.
Oh, by the way, thank you guys so much for 500 subscribers. We have been hitting milestone after
500.
milestone.
I think it's
I know.
around 1,000.
I'm getting there.
Yeah.
I just want to start by, 2 weeks ago, we had about 30 subscribers. Okay. Last week, we're texting each other saying, wow, we hit 100 subscribers. Wow, we hit 300 subscribers. Oh my God, we just hit 500 subscribers. I think now we are past 900 and we're on the road to 1,000. And with that insane exponential growth in a matter of literally 2 weeks, I just want to say thank you guys so much for showing interest in what we're trying to do. and our mission and our passion in all of this. And we really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And honestly, like, without you guys, well, I mean, like, we wanted to do this, but like,
We did.
without like you guys actually proving that, I mean, like, these
You're enjoying it,
Yeah.
clearly.
I mean, I can't say that's been proven. Like, I just like to talk. That's all I've been. If you guys know anything about me, is that I love to talk.
And we love to talk together about these really cool, different topics that maybe not everybody talks about
Right.
in terms of being a creator. And the fact that anybody can relate to it and find interest in it is like just the craziest thing to me. And I'm so grateful.
Absolutely. So thank you again. Again, hit the subscribe button so
Do
we can
it.
grow.
Yeah.
And also social media, Instagram, and Facebook. Give that Twitter
Instagram, and Facebook.
Oh yeah. I was about to say give that love to Twitter because like we really need that. But other than that, video on Kiera's face, video on my face. And with that being said, thank you again. And we hope to see you with us grow even longer and a fruitful future.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that, we will see you guys in the next episode.
Bye-bye for now.